Hello everyone, this is Don Horatio bringing you episode 8 of my renowned series TLO party with yours truly, Don Horatio. I'll be bringing you a ZvT between TLO and one of the best known Terrans in the foreign community. It is none other than EG Raid Call's ThorZaIN. So let's definitely just get right into this without further ado. In the top left we have our Zerg hero representing Team Liquid spawning in the blue. It is TLO. And in the bottom left, we have EG ThorZaIN, the Red Terran, fighting to take down our hero on this day on the field of battle, which is Entombed Valley, by the way. And I would call Entombed Valley Terran favored, for sure. It's really easy to get to that 3-base, really like that triple orbital, really get that economy going and defend with tanks. If you look at this little ridgemer right here, you can really get some tanks here, up on this one to get rid of the rocks, and cover both this ramp and this ramp, and it's very good. Very, very good to defend that way. So we'll have to see how TLO decides to handle that. Neither player going for any sort of early game shenanery. So we'll have to see what they both decide to do with their builds, whether ThorZaIN will go for some sort of early expand, and TLO almost certainly will go 15 hatch. We'll have to see if ThorZaIN goes for a barracks or a gas before his expansion. Command center first is always a really cool thing to do, especially if you don't die while doing it. Get that economy really going. I would expect to see a very early triple orbital build, maybe even off of only one Rax in a factory. That'd be really cool to do on this map. So we'll have to see what he decides to do. TLO right now about to reach that 15 drone count, where he'll look to make that expansion and plop it down very soon. First barracks on the way for ThorZaIN. So he's not going command center first, but I would expect a one Rax expand here unless he puts down a gas in the very near future. ThorZaIN is striking me as a 2-raxing kind of player, so I don't expect to see any sort of double rax play. But you can see the minerals really starting to add up for ThorZaIN, so I'm expecting a command center very, very soon here. Oh, actually, he does go for the gas before the command center, so there is that. But I still expect a command center soon. This is just too good a map for Terran to play macro on, so I just don't see any way ThorZaIN goes for anything other than a early expansion sort of play. Spawning pool now on the way for TLO, as his expansion is now begun as well. Gonna look to get Queens out to get that macro going, and Zerglings out for that map vision. As the first scouting drone for, not ThorZaIN, for TLO is out on the way. I'm going to warn you guys in advance, because both names start with T, I'm actually have a lot of trouble, and I probably will say ThorZaIN and TLO backwards a lot, and I apologize in advance for that. We do see now that command center that I discussed is on the way for ThorZaIN, and you can see how he actually uses it to block off the ramp here. So that's part of his wall, actually, is this giant building command center with a ton of health. Always good to place that there on the high ground. Just make sure that you get that orbital up safely, start dropping mules, and if Zerg comes with a heavy pressure, you're already in your base and walled off, so you can just use it for SCV production and mule dropping, and it just, even without being in a second expansion, having that extra orbital really helps out your economy a ton. We just see TLO with no gas yet, going for that heavy queen play. Start making 2 to start with, 1 at each hatchery. And I'll expect at least a couple more here as he goes for a 4 to maybe 6 queen play. But that's up to him, really. It's a kind of a personal choice how many queens you want to get. We do have the reactor and the factory coming in for ThorZaIN. Very standard, going to get those Hellions out for map control. And there's that third command center that I talked about. So this is a strong 3 orbital command build designed to really get you on those 3 bases as quickly as possible. And on this map, you're able to defend them fairly well, so it's just a great build order choice for this map. Absolutely no reason not to do it. Zergling's now going to start working on those destructible rocks, trying to defend that 3rd base the best he can, because it's really a long reinforced point to go all the way down around this way. Especially when your early defense is mostly queens, it's a huge pain in the ass to really get around those rocks. And we still see no gas for TLO, and with how high his minerals are going, I would expect to see another expansion maybe very soon, or at least a macro hatch. We do have more queens finishing, and he actually may use these minerals to make a couple more queens. That's also a possibility. And he is at least adding 1 more, as we can see in the production tab. 2 orbitals are now done for ThorZaIN. He's about to lift this one down to his natural and start getting that mining really going. Because obviously once you reach a certain point, you can't obviously just drop mules and have 40 SCVs on one base. You need more bases. Orbitals don't just make money by themselves, despite what Zerg and Protoss players might think about them. The 3rd orbital will be finishing very soon as well. The command center part of it is now done, and the orbital will be out as well. First couple of Hellions now starting to be rallied out onto the map. I believe he has 2 out already, so this makes 4 complete. We do have some overlords being put in good positions by TLO. We can see over here, ready to fly in and maybe scout out his opponent very soon. See what build he's up to. The expansion hatchery at the third is now on the way for TLO. Looking to get that expansion going and that 3-base income. He might even need a 4th very soon to really make a strong effort at matching ThorZaIN's economy if that 3rd orbital flips over in anywhere in the near future. You really don't want to be on 3-base as Zerg versus a 3-base Terran. So if TLO sniffs out this 3rd orbital, he will definitely make a 4th hatchery very soon. And need that gas income for that late macro game and being able to defend against huge siege tank based armies, and we'll have to see what happens with that. We do see an evolution chamber on the way for TLO, as well as that Zergling speed now started as well. So tech's pretty late because of how late the gas was, but it also put down 2 to 3 gases at once, so that tech, when it gets going, it'll really get going, with double Evo chamber upgrades on the way. Likely to see one start here very soon, and one upgrade does start. It's going to be +1 Carapace first. I'd also like to see a macro hatch sometime in the somewhat near future. Might go for the 4th hatch first instead, but TL is really going to want to get that production up very soon. ThorZaIN's taking a lot of gas, which will indicate at least transition into... Oh, that'll explain why there's so much gas. Going double eBay. Going to take a lot of money to support that and a lot of gas, especially if you're doing siege tanks at the same time. But ThorZaIN going for that just heavy macro play. I'd expect to see this 3rd base flood out very soon as well. 3rd base now done for TLO, starting to get a couple drones there, and we'll likely see the gases taken soon as well once he starts thinking about that hive tech and forward. And also moving out with queens, and this creep's getting okay, but I'd like to see it get out a bit further, but he does have 3 queens out patrolling and laying down a bunch of creep. They're very high energy though. I don't know what exactly they were doing instead of laying creep tumors, but he will lay down a bunch at once, and so this will get really cranking it all at one time. The Hellions still trying to posture a bit of a threat and deny creep as much as they can, but there are enough queens out that they can basically push them back with relative ease. We see that the overlords have been flowed in, so they are now gone. The overlords, I mean. Or at least floated over here, so... Maybe the Vikings forced them over there. I didn't actually see for sure, but I would believe that the scout did go on. I should take a look at TLO's vision. He did not float in, actually. I guess the Vikings must have come over and taken care of that. I believe there is a Viking out in the field. Yes, the Viking must have done that. And also we see Banshees in the composition as well, going for Hellion Banshee aggression to some extent is our player from Sweden. But right now only 1 Banshee, so I guess he's just trying to cause a little bit of a ruckus with that, and maybe force some Spore Crawlers out that TLO would rather not make. And here comes some units trying to deal with that. A bunch of queens out there, and no cloak in that Banshee, so nothing going to happen there. But TLO is really starting to establish this, going to start making that wall at the 3rd base, and once he gets these 3 bases going, he'll be in great shape. Should probably be dropping that fuel. But, looking very good. But TLO should drop a 4th hatch in response to this very soon, unless he goes for some sort of very aggressive play, but there's the 4th hatch indeed. Gonna look to get that gas going. We see the Infestation Pit on the way, which will provide both access to the Infestors, a very awesome unit as we all know, but also access to that Hive Tech. Gonna look to move forward. 2 more gases here, now complete at the 3rd as well. So really looking to get that tech going ASAP. So you see the standard Marine tank composition here from ThorZaIN. Nothing out of the ordinary there, and TL is actually getting some Roach upgrades, getting that Roach speed. Gonna look to defend with that, and he actually has +1 missile attacks as well, so he could go for some sort of hybrid composition if he wants to, as he has upgrades for both the Roaches and the Zerglings. Interesting little play there from TLO. Gives him a bit of flexibility, but does not make the strongest single unit composition, but he has a lot of options now. And with a if you don't know what the other player is doing, it's good to have the ability to react, so I guess it's always an alright thing to do. We do have a bunch of Roaches coming out for the early defense here, and they'll be good against a bunch of mech units, but not the strongest composition, not the strongest unit against Marine tank Roaches. They're just very susceptible. They tend to get in the big clumps and take a lot of damage from the siege tank volleys, and Marines are very good against them as well, even with the armor. So, gonna look to get Zerglings out and Banelings and Infestors potentially as well. But we do see the Hive is now started for TLO. Getting those upgrades still out there on the map. Bunch of Roaches still coming out as well, but also Zerglings, so he is going for that sort of hybrid composition. He's not really decided what he really wants to do. Pathogen Gland's about to finish as well, that Infestor Energy upgrade, so they'll be useful when they come out and have fungal growths, as opposed to just like 1 infested Terran, which does next to nothing. So gotta have that Pathogen Glands upgrade. A little bit of a skirmish in the middle of the map. Queen's taking some damage as the Roaches look like they're gonna move in, but these Banelings are not quite ready, and the Queens are taking damage before the Banelings are even ready to fight. And the queens will go down very quickly, but these tanks will go down at least the front couple, but there are 2 more from behind. And that's the strength of tanks. You can have that tank line pretty deep. And ThorZaIN will push back these units. Not the best trade there for TLO, for sure. Army supply still in his favor by a little bit, but a bit of an iffy engagement. No player really came out on top there. Just kind of poking to see what they can do. As this 4th base is now done for TLO, getting those 2 gases down to supplement that hive tech. The rally was not set here for these roaches, so they'll set here for a while until ThorZaIN realizes, not ThorZaIN, see, I told you I'd mess that up. Until TLO realizes that this hatchery is not rallied. There we go, there's that rally. So now they'll be going where they're supposed to go. And let's see what else is on the map. ThorZaIN starting to move forward in posture a bit, trying to get out on the map, get some presence out there. And he'll look to maybe push forward with this a little bit. And here does indeed come a push. A bit of a timing. 2-2 is just finished. And he also has the stim and the combat shield on these Marines. This is a pretty good time to move out. And going to try and deal with some creep at least and look to push across the map. This is also an alright time to go for that 4th base, as TLO, his tech buildings for Hive are only just now building. Ultralisk Cavern 2/3 done. That means the Ultralisks are quite some time away. To watch these Marines run around trying to deal with some roaches and move around. And I'd like to see them posture up on that 4th base very soon. It looks like he will move that way. The tanks are moving out as well over here. And TLO's going to look to defend this with maybe some sort of flank. But right now his army supply is way down compared to his opponent, down by about 20. So not a particularly good spot. Looking to try and maybe poke in there, but the siege tanks are sieged and ready for this. And now ThorZaIN is going to posture up on the 4th base, and TLO's going to have to do a pretty good job holding this. A bunch of Zerglings did just pop out. He has a bunch of roaches as well, but only a couple infestors and one with next to no energy. Only enough for one infested Terran. He'll look to get a good fungal in that little group of Marines. That'll take down ThorZaIN's army supply a little bit, but he's still up a significant amount, and it will take some good defensive unit positioning from TLO to hold off this attack as siege tanks start to volley away. And at home, ThorZaIN's actually taking a 4th base and finishing a planetary there as well, so he'll be in great shape. But here comes that flank from TLO, looking to maybe do a little bit of damage here. And I'd like to see some units come from the top as well. Ultras are now ready, a couple coming out, and when these couple of Ultras finish, I would expect to see the move in on the army here for TLO, looking to clean this up. As the Spine Call finishes as well, but it will get taken down in a second. But a couple of Spines here as well. These Marines running in basically to die. They pick off a couple drones, but the workers killed is... It's high-ish, but a bunch of Marines lost there for not a whole lot. And making a couple Bailings as well is TLO. And he's going to look to make this cleanup pretty soon. Now let's see maybe make an attempt to cut off those reinforcements as well. Just move a couple of Zerglings in to try and do some damage. But the Marines at the tower will see that, but... I mean, these reinforcement lines are pretty weak if you hit them from the side. No siege tanks over there. And TLO's just like... He's just waiting it out. ThorZaIN's giving him a lot of time to prepare here, which is not really the best decision. But now here come the siege tanks moving in a bit. And here's that big flank I was talking about. Ultras moving in from the back, cleaving through these bunch of Marines. And they will get up on these tanks very soon. The Zergling's taking fire instead of the Ultralisk, exactly what TLO wants. It looks like TLO is actually able to clean this up pretty easily. Moving in are the Ultralisks. And here comes some Bailings from the flank as well, making some great connections. And a great cleanup by TLO as ThorZaIN finds himself way behind in supply. Only medevacs left over as well, and the army supply is down to 65 to the 113 of TLO. And he will look to counter, maybe attack at this 4th base. But there is, these 2 command centers will actually really reduce that choke point and make those Ultralisks really annoying to kind of maneuver around. This PF will do a bunch of damage, as well as a couple of siege tanks, but there's no Marine support. And here comes the army of TLO moving in to try and do some damage. Siege tanks getting up some good volleys on the Banelings at least, but here come the Ultralisks, and they will cleave these tanks to pieces immediately. And that siege tank count needs to be pretty high for ThorZaIN if he wants to stand a chance later on in the game. He needs to maintain that count. And TLO moving in and trying to do some good damage here, going straight for that planetary fortress. Banelings will go off on the SCVs. Some great hits there, but does not get that last really good one he needs. Looks like he might get it there. There he does go, and the SCVs, not the SCVs, the Ultras also do great damage. Look at that workers kill tab now, 25 down, and a lot of that was at that 4th base. Great maneuver by ThorZaIN, but Terran has the ability to lift buildings and balance, and he can now take this base once again immediately and even drop mules at it. But ThorZaIN does take away the defensive point by taking out the planetary fortress, so he will be able to counterattack much easier later on in the game. And that 4th base will be a pushing point for him coming forward, and definitely something to keep an eye on. But as we now see, this 4th base of TLO is pretty safe, as he is now the one with control of the map. ThorZaIN no longer pushing in. Zergling's moving in to try and do some damage, but siege tanks will put a quick end to that. TLO trying to take a double expand here for a 5th and 6th base. Definitely a good idea when you have this much control of the map and enough vision out there to see where your opponent is. These medevacs and Marines are not long for this world, trying to take care of some creep, but that will not go as planned for ThorZaIN. And ThorZaIN's really on the back foot right now and allowing the TLO to build up a really big Doom army. I don't think there's a Spire in place to transition to Broodlords quite yet, but right now he has so many Ultralisks. He's got 2 in production, and that's the right tab. 8 on the field, so we'll have 10 Ultralisks out pretty soon, and that is a just scary proposition, and +3 melee attacks also on the way as well. And Ultralisk now moving in, though, before the max army is really there. Great Fungal catching all these medevacs and also a tank, I guess. But Ultralisk doing what they can, look to cleave these SCVs would be a great maneuver. Lifting the SCVs into the medevacs actually to save them. The Queens will look to do some damage to the medevacs and take them out, so that's a good maneuver. We now have the army for TLO moving into this mutual choke point between the 2nd and 3rd bases of ThorZaIN. Ultralisk targeting not only the best there, and that choke did do a lot of damage. TLO not trading very effectively in that point. But it looks like he did deny this 4th base once again. It will land and start mining pretty soon. There it does go, actually, but killed a lot more workers, and he's up to 32 workers killed. So TLO is doing a really good job keeping ThorZaIN on the back foot while he's able to really get this economy going with the 5th and 6th bases. And frankly, TLO just needs to deny this 5th expansion and just keep ThorZaIN mining on the expansions he has, and soon he'll run out. Because if you look at the minerals, main base nearly mined out, natural not very saturated at all. 3rd base doing pretty okay, but the longer this drags on, the better shape TLO will be in, and he'll have many more mineral patches than his opponent. So ThorZaIN's macro is like, it's doing alright, but the Marine production doesn't really seem to be there quite right now. He's making like 3 tanks right now, and look at this empty production tab. That's just not something you want to see from anybody. Making 3 Marauders and 3 tanks at once, but he just needs more production than this. We can see his money just skyrocketing right now up to 1k, and that is not good enough in this sort of situation where macro is really what keeps you alive, and he'll find himself falling farther and farther behind as TLO continues to trade units for units and take advantage of his econ. We do see the Spire now on the way for TLO. Can look to make that transition to the Broodlord tech if it comes to that point, and that's definitely something you want to be able to do. And if you look at the Viking count, it is currently 1, which is obviously not going to be enough to stop that Broodlord transition. Ultra is starting to mass in the middle. We do have 13 Ultras in the field, which is obscene. That is so much tank, and they're going to look to move in once again, taking some siege tank fire. But they're definitely looking to move in and deal some damage right here. Going to try and trade supply for units so we can try and make that transition to the Broodlords when the Greater Spire is eventually done. Doing a bunch of damage, some great Fungals pinning down those bio units. A bit of a iffy engagement again from TLO, but he will get most of the tanks. And there are just so many Ultralisks here doing a ton of damage. And any damage here is just absolutely magnificent. Baneling's going off in the mineral line as well, killing all of his mules. Marauders being very cost efficient and moving around and kiting his Marauders. Very good job of micro there by ThorZaIN. And the remaining Ultralisk will run away. And back to the Zelnaga Tower, but right now, TLO is really eyeing that Muta transition. He's still making a bunch of Ultralisks. Muta transition, Broodlord transition. Greater Spire now on the way as well, so those Broodlords are a long way off. This drop seems to be doing a little bit of damage, or has some potential. He'll look to maybe try and focus fire down this hatchery, but here comes the army of TLO back to deal with it. Zergling's managing to sneak in and get a good surface area despite the location behind the mineral lines for ThorZaIN, and he will clean that up. The Medevacs will get away. There's nothing to really do anything about them right now. And they'll drop up here to maybe try and do some damage up here, but a bunch of Spine Crawlers over here will stop that. This Banshee, though, there's not a whole lot to stop it over here. This Infestor's over here, but no Queen. And this Banshee will take out a couple of drones for sure. You do have some units moving across the map for ThorZaIN, trying to transition to, well, a Thor. Makes sense for his name. Got a couple out in the field to perhaps deal with those air units. And we do have ship weapons level 2 on the way for ThorZaIN, maybe in anticipation of that Broodlord production, and he also has 3 Vikings out now. Still not enough to really deal with a high level and big Broodlord transition, as TLO will be preparing to do very soon. Right now, TLO finds himself a little bit mineral starved after transferring a bunch of drones over here. That should fix itself relatively soon. But these Banshees are being a huge pain, and this drop as well. TLO not having the easiest time cleaning that up, as his supply does actually fall below his Terran opponent for the first time in a long time. But TLO has spent a bunch of money on the Greater Spire, but he doesn't have any Corruptors out yet to take advantage of that, and only 3 on the way. And ThorZaIN being very cost-effective with this drop, and really doing the best he can do with what he has, as he looks to take a 5th base as well. Planetary Fortress already in position. Going to be able to defend against any sort of really cheap Zergling run-bys. A bunch of mules being dropped down, his economy will spike very quickly. And TLO, if he's not careful, will let ThorZaIN get back into this game. ThorZaIN's played really patiently and defensively. TLO's been kind of rushing in and trading inefficiently, but he really needs to get that Broodlord tech going very quickly, and right now he just does not have the econ, really. The income, let's just take a look at that really briefly. It's not really where it should be, considering his drone count is at 77, which is actually pretty low. I'd like to see him more at like an 85 level, somewhere in there, but it's still pretty close, but really, apparently he just does not have enough to really get these Broodlords going. He's morphing 4 right now, but this was not the big transition that can really catch the Terran player off guard. And TLO's going to have a very interesting composition for a while with a couple of Ultras, a couple of Broodlords, a couple of Infestors, a couple of Zerglings, and a couple of Banelings, a little bit of everything for TLO, which I'm not terribly surprised by, as, well, he's TLO. He's one of the craziest players we know. ThorZaIN can move out again for another drop attempt after that first one was so successful and lasted so long. So we'll have to see how much damage he can do with that. A little double drop action. And TLO now at a max once again. A bunch of Corruptors on the way. We'll only have 4 Broodlords though. We'll have a bunch of Banelings as well, and he'll look to trade units once again. Let's take a look at the bases for TLO. ThorZaIN, I want to see how well mined out he is. This third base is nearly gone. This low saturation in the natural means that there's still a bunch left there. But fourth base nearly mined out too. Mules do have a tendency to do that. So once again, TLO can play the kind of containment game and really try to keep ThorZaIN off more bases and force a late game push that will just be very weak compared to the economy power that TLO has to just churn units after units out onto the map. But here comes a little push and maybe try to do some damage at these expansions. And a very strange unit composition, like I said. Gonna have a couple of Fungals and some Infestors to really try to deal with some ground units as the Broodlords move in and try and siege up as well. Thor gonna try and do some pretty good damage, and a good Fungal does land, landing on a bunch of units, but there's no real bio there, so the Fungal not very super effective. But these Broodlords are successfully sieging up on the Terran units, doing some damage to these siege tanks to keep them off the ground so the Ultras could potentially move in and do some damage. We see Ravens launching some Hunter Seeker missiles at only 1 Broodlord, not a very cost-effective use of energy right there, but I mean, trying to basically take into account what all the people in the forums are saying, use Raven ZvT, TVZ because it's unexplored, but when we use it like that, it's not going to be very effective. Might want to see some better Hunter Seekers here in the future. A good opportunity right there to launch some, but he does not quite use it. And TLO's moving in with the Ultralisk and doing a bunch of damage. They're going to move up into the 5th base, which is very undefended if you take a look at it. This Planetary Fortress is here, but he moves those roaches so the Ultras can actually get in. There we go, and that'll go down very quickly. SCV Repair will not help you against Ultralisk Cleave attack. And that Planetary will go down very quickly as the Broodlords continue to siege up at the 4th base. And ThorZaIN's down by 80 supply, and this might be the end. Losing those 2 mining bases will basically just absolutely cripple this economy, and he'll not be able to refuse units at all. A good Fungal there on the Vikings. Want to see a couple more of those to help out those Corruptors, taking them out to save those Broodlords. Infested Terrans going down as well. One more Fungal to really do that damage. Infested Terrans. Shoot the Vikings, Terrans. Shoot them. Shoot, no, don't run away. Shoot the Vikings. What are you doing? Anyway, but this looks like the beginning of the end for ThorZaIN. Down by 80 supply once again, like I said. A bunch more Ultralisks on the way to help clean up. Army supply is 105 to 70. I mean, 123 to 70 after a big bunch of units coming out for TLO. A bunch more Ultralisks, and basically there's no mining for ThorZaIN right now. This 4th base is going to try and drop some mules again, but he's just really low, and the gas income's also been crippled because of the lack of these refineries. And TLO's got a stranglehold in this match, and I would like to see, we'll likely see one more push in as TLO takes a little aggressive hatchery right here because there's 1 Marine to stop him here. But we'll likely see one more big push in from TLO, and ThorZaIN just does not have what it takes to hold it once again. Auto turrets will not save you now. Power of the Raven is not quite where it needs to be to hold off, well, basically a 100 plus supply Zerg player. And here it seems to come that last push. This isn't really all of TLO's army, but it might just be enough anyway. Gonna look to try and cleave through these supply depots and just get in on the back of the siege tanks and up into the Terran base to really just gut it. They're focusing on that siege tank really quickly, and here come the Ultralisks for the last charge, I would guess. Taking down these siege tanks, gonna take down some auto turrets as well. Moving into a choke point, trading somewhat inefficiently here. But at this point, it just does not matter. And there's the GG, well played from the EG Terran. And that's your game. TLO playing a very good back row ZvT. Did a great job being very, very patient, waiting for the right time to flank and move in, using Ultralisk to clear out the push that was over here from ThorZaIN. And just very well done. ThorZaIN gave him a lot of time to prepare, like I said, but Would like to see a bit more initial pressure there, because the time that ThorZaIN moved out on the map, TLO was caught in a bit of an awkward spot. He was just transitioning to Hive Tech. Ultralisk Cavern was about 2/3 of the way done when that 2-2 finished for ThorZaIN. And I really would have liked to see an attempt to use that timing with what he had, and he just played it a little bit too slow, and TLO was able to clean up and just absolutely crushing that push, gave him an edge in the game that he never really quite surrendered, despite some inefficient trades and not really handling the drop harass in the top right particularly well over here and at this base. But in the end, TLO just basically came out on top, played very, very well, and that's game 8 of TLO Party, and he brings his record in TLO Party to 6-2, so 6 wins. This was his most recent win, obviously, and I will be bringing you game 9 very shortly, so stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching.